About a year ago, I released a video talking about Mascot Horror games and reviewed 3 of the most popular games in the genre. And since then, there's been a ton more that have been released trying to create the next big thing. I mean, who doesn't want to create the next Freddy Fazbear? That guy practically prints money. However, most of these characters never make it past their very first game, whether it be from lack of interest from the public or something the developers abandoned for one reason or another. But every now and then we see a sequel to one of these games and the franchise start to take shape. And that's what I want to talk about today, because all 3 of the games I reviewed last year have since released a sequel. So how did the developers do? Did they add to their stories and continue to deliver on the quality we saw in their first game? Or did they completely fumble and potentially ruin their new series? Also, before we go any further, here's your spoiler warning for all the games I'll be talking about today. And with that, let's start with Poppy Playtime Chapter 2, A Fly in a Web, takes place right after where the first game left off, after we freed Poppy from her glass case and are now trying to escape the factory. However, we're quickly stopped by the game's newest antagonist, Mommy Longlegs. Really, that's the name that they went with? Alright. Who kidnaps Poppy and says if we play her games, she'll give us Poppy back and the train code to leave. And that's basically the whole plot of Chapter 2. It might seem like I'm really oversimplifying things, but no, that's really the entire chapter. Leave the Poppy room, go to the train station, complete the 3 minigames, run from the villain, roll credits, throw a wire puzzle between each section, and you have the entire chapter. $10 for something you can finish in about 2 hours. The whole thing just feels very rushed. There are several rooms like the rejected toy room that are full of details and items, but all you do in this room is drag a crane from one side to the other to lift a toy dinosaur, and that's it. It feels like this room was supposed to serve a greater purpose before being downgraded to this. The games that Mommy Longlegs has us play are also super basic. The first one is Simon Says, the second one is Whack-A-Mole, and the third one is Red Light Green Light. It's all just so bland. I think the best way to describe this is the first game, but more of it. More wire puzzles, hunting for items, and chase scenes. And while that's not a bad thing, there's nothing really new here. We get a new green hand that can hold electricity for a short time, but that's only ever used to solve more wire puzzles. All the games that Mommy Longlegs has us play are different versions of do a thing before a monster gets us, and then the entire thing ends in a chase scene before we defeat the final villain, just like the first game. I was honestly pretty interested in the series after the first game, but this one killed any interest I'd have in continuing with the series, especially if I'm only going to get more wire puzzles, more chases, and more extremely bland gameplay. Honestly, I just found the entire experience disappointing, but not nearly as disappointing as this game is absolute garbage. It's barely a game, it's just a giant waste of time. Hold on a second, let me start from the beginning. So, the original Gartan of Banban was a short half-hour experience, and while it wasn't anything special, it was free, so I wasn't too critical with it. But having to buy the sequel, I'm not going to be nearly as forgiving. The best way to describe Gartan of Banban 2 is padding. Every section only serves to pad the runtime of the game without adding anything of substance. There's a section where you're in a classroom being run by one of the creatures, and we're forced to play as one of the students. Basically, she asks us a question, and we select one of the 4 students at our table that know the correct answer. But there's no way of knowing which student has the correct answer, so it basically becomes a guessing game, and if you get any of them wrong, you die and have to start over again. This section quickly becomes a slog to get through though, because you have to hear her give the same explanation for each section, run through any questions you've already answered, just to get back to where you were to try again. It's the same with a cannon game we play later on. All you do is shoot cannons at targets that light up, but there's so many targets and rounds that you have to get through, and if you don't hit one of the targets in time, you have to start the entire thing over again. Which wouldn't be as bad, except some of the targets are below the platform, so you need to quickly run under the platform to shoot it, and for some reason you can only hold one firework at a time, so if you forget to pick it up between shots, you won't have enough time to grab it and fire the cannon, forcing you to start over. It seems like every section of the game has something like this, where they took a really simple concept and added something to make it take much longer to complete, just to waste time. I probably died like a dozen times trying to figure out half these puzzles, and I still finished the entire game in about 75 minutes. It was so bad, I ended up requesting a refund even though I finished the game, because it didn't feel like a game at all, but like a shameless cash grab, rather than something made by someone who actually wanted to make a game. I know it seems like I'm being extra mean talking about about this one, but it genuinely made me mad to play through. I had my expectations as low as they could be, and it still frustrated me to no end, with this poor gameplay, boring story, and absolutely dreadful presentation. Alright, so we're 0 for 2 on the Mascot Horror game sequels. But I think I saved the best for last. When I was originally exploring Mascot Horror games last year, I wasn't sure which one I wanted to round out my reviews, so I thought I'd pick up a wild card and see if it was any good. Little did I know, this would end up being one of my favorite horror games, a deceptively simple game about solving puzzles with VHS tapes of an old kids show called Amanda the Adventurer 2 takes place right where the first game left off, after we've destroyed the TV in the attic and are met by the mysterious masked individual who seems to know what happened to our aunt and knows about Amanda. She drives us to the library our aunt used to work at, and we start our new adventure to find more of the tapes and solve more mysteries. This new setting is definitely much more impressive than the first one, giving us a whole library to explore rather than just a single room, but I don't know, I kinda miss the feeling of the attic. What made it work so well is that everything in there served some sort of purpose, and you knew that every object would be used to solve a puzzle or progress the story, but with the library, there's just so much stuff in here that's just kinda there. This is perfectly shown in the first puzzle, which has become infamous online for how challenging it is. All you have to do is find a 4-digit code to open a cabinet and unlock the first tape. Sounds simple enough, but this puzzle took me over 45 minutes because I legitimately could not figure out what they wanted me to do to solve it. You're supposed to run around the library and find books that have been vandalized with pieces of the code you need to decipher, but some books have letters and numbers, some just have letters, and others only have numbers, and some don't have anything at all. What's even more confusing is that you can scan books to view the history of everyone who has checked that book out, the dates they were checked out, and other books that those people have checked out. Some books are also labeled checked out, meaning that they aren't in the library, but some aren't marked checked out, they're just not in the library, or at least I couldn't find them, making me think I was missing some books that had some critical information to solve the puzzle. So now you have all this information and you need to figure out what's important and what's not. I honestly thought there were multiple puzzles hidden in these books, because the game takes place in a library. I just figured they developed their puzzles around the setting, but after you solve this one, you spend almost the entire rest of the game in the room with the VHS player, making me wonder why we're in a library in the first place if it really doesn't serve a purpose in the story. Okay, so do you want to know how to solve this puzzle? You start with this book, which has the initials JK on the first line, indicating that's how you find the first number. You scan the book and find the name that matches the initials, and then you look up the books that person has checked out. Then you see if they've checked out any other books that are both in the library and part of the books you've collected that have been vandalized. Then you search for either an initial or initial with a number. If they got a number, that's one of the digits for the code. If not, then you look up that person's profile and you find another book till you have all 3 numbers. I say 3 because they just give you the 4th number. And with that, we have our very first tape. I'm gonna be honest, this puzzle had me extremely nervous for the rest of the game. I've seen developers make their puzzles much harder in sequels to either pad out the runtime or because the hardcore fans complained that they were too easy. Thankfully though, the rest of the puzzles were actually a lot easier to solve. Sure, some of them took me a bit of time, but it always felt like I had all the tools I needed like in the first game, and it was more just me figuring out how they all fit together rather than trying to figure out what the game wanted me to do. From here, we watch a tape, get a corresponding item in the real world, then we need to use both to solve a puzzle to unlock the next tape. Although, there is something important to note. Wooly is completely gone, and it's just us and Amanda, and there is a much darker tone in these new tapes. Amanda is just visibly sadder throughout these tapes, and she keeps bringing up that she's depressed and not feeling right, adding to this feeling of despair from the first game. Things are not going well for Amanda, and she's still hurting, maybe even doing much worse than when we last saw her. There's also one other major change to these new tapes. See, I wasn't completely honest when I said it's just Amanda. There's a new possum character, and this thing is creepy. He acts like a regular wild animal most of the time and can be seen stalking Amanda in most of the tapes, only to jump out at her every episode and either attack her or steal something from her. And it's very unsettling to watch this wild animal attack Amanda because you can see how much she's struggling just to keep this creature away, only for it to keep coming back. After we get through the first couple tapes, we actually get to see Wooly come back, to Amanda's dismay. It is very clear she does not like him. Wooly's also gone through some changes as well. being more openly cynical and pessimistic towards Amanda, complaining a lot, and being more open with how fed up he is with her. He no longer feels like this mentor character like he was in the first game, but more of a babysitter forced to tag along to make sure Amanda stays safe. More of an obligation than something he actually wants to do. After we watch a few tapes, we get one where Amanda and Wooly are going on a treasure hunt, but after they find the treasure, Amanda is disappointed to find out it's just some old toy and the episode ends in disappointment. Except not really. Amanda comes back and demands that we, the player, find a better toy or there'll be consequences, and that's when we finally see it. The creature from the first game slowly emerging from behind the TV, hand extended, awaiting a toy. We hand it the first thing we find, but it's not good enough. The creature kills us and it's game over. Back to the main menu. So, we boot up the game and start from the beginning. Luckily, I still had the code written down from the first puzzle, so I opened the case, got the first tape, and stuck it back in the VCR to start all over. But this time, it played out a bit differently. I heard a train whistle that wasn't present the first time through, so I decided to pause it and see where it came from, and found an entirely new puzzle to solve. It looks like we found a new path to take. Like before, I solved the puzzles, got the new tapes, until I got a tape called When You're Feeling Bad, which opens with Amanda just lying on the couch depressed. She has no motivation to go on adventures or even really move. Wooly tries cheering her up, but it's clear he has no idea what to do. He convinces us that if we can tell Amanda a story, it'll be the thing to cheer her up. So he starts telling a story about a knight saving a princess. However, while he's telling the story, the creature shows up again to attack us. But Amanda stops it at the last second and says that she knows we're trying to help her and to leave us be. So the creature moves to the side of the room, almost like it's waiting for us to fail. We go through Wooly's story, but it's clear Amanda does not like it at all. But Wooly powers through to the end. Amanda hates the story and we get killed by the creature. Back to the main menu. This time when we start over, we find the When You Feel Bad tape sitting in the room, clearly indicating there's another way to tell the story that Amanda will actually like. After a bit of searching, I noticed some drawings behind Amanda on the wall of characters from the original story that Wooly told, but in a different order. So, we start following her drawings rather than what Wooly wanted, and we are greeted by a new, much more talented narrator who starts telling us Amanda's story. And while it does make her happier, it is clear that Wooly does not like it and has several angry outbursts about how it's all wrong and it's a bad story, even though it's clearly making Amanda happy. Maybe Wooly isn't such a good guy after all. Once we get through the new story, Amanda is happy and sends the creature away. We're given a hammer to unlock the next tape, and it's the treasure hunting tape from before. I figured it'd be different this time, but no, it plays out the exact same. Right up until the ending, where we need to find a new toy or the creature will attack us again. Well, since there was a Wooly doll holding this tape when we found it, I rushed to the library and gave that to the creature. It got very upset with this choice. However, it didn't attack us. Rather, it ran out into the library and destroyed the door to the office, revealing a new area. Inside the office, we find a very damaged tape that has clearly been corrupted. Characters and audio are heavily distorted, items are moving through the ground and flying through the air, and it's a complete mess to watch. The plot of this tape is that Wooly wants to throw away a bunch of broken items that he deems as trash, but Amanda wants to fix them and try to save them from being thrown away. We help Amanda fix the items in the box and are given the final tape called Do You Feel Safe?, which centers around Amanda not feeling safe, but also throws caution to the wind because she doesn't think that anything matters. The tape ends and the mysterious person from the beginning finally joins us in the library. We solve one last puzzle with them to find a secret hatch hidden in the library office. The mysterious person gathers all the tapes we found and says it's finally time to destroy them. However, after she destroys the first one, the creature returns and attacks her. She gives us one last tape and we seal the door behind us before heading down the hatch alone. And that's the end of the game. You know, a few difficult puzzles aside, I think this is a really good sequel for the series. It does a really good job continuing the story from the first one and introducing new mechanics that work really well. I do miss the claustrophobic feeling of the attic, but there's something creepy about being in a building that's usually very crowded at night after it's closed. My only real criticism outside those difficult puzzles is that I wish they did more as a sequel to help distinguish it from the first. It honestly just feels like more of the first game with different puzzles, and while I really liked it, I wish they'd try exploring new mechanics, like maybe a rewind option to listen to backwards audio or something, or exploring more puzzles like the piggy bank one, where the tapes are able to influence real world objects. So, we have to pause and play the tapes while objects are in certain locations in order to solve puzzles. But I will say, if you like the first game, then you'll probably like this one, and if you can get past that first puzzle, it really is a fun experience. But playing through all the sequels has left me thinking about the future of the mascot horror genre. Over the last couple years, we've seen a huge increase in developers trying to make their own mascot horror game, resulting in a major influx of these games coming out. But most of these games just aren't that good. It seems like a lot more work is put into making an iconic mascot that can be printed on plushies and merch, and hiding enough lore for YouTubers and influencers to make theories about. I mean, most of these games have a link to a merch store on the title screen of their very first game. It makes me think the goal is just to sell junk with a colorful character on it, rather than to make an actual game. Something I think a lot of people forget about is that Five Nights at Freddy's didn't have complex lore or a mountain of merch to sell when they first came out. I mean, it was several games before we even heard about the Bite of 87. They were able to stand on their own because they were made to be really fun games, rather than finding as many ways as possible to get people to spend money. I think the mascot horror genre is a unique one, because it's one of the few genres we've seen a lot of creativity coming from in the last few years, and I'd really hate to see that go away because a lot of greedy developers want to try to exploit it for as much money as they can. I think it's really open to so many new opportunities, and I'd really like to see those explored rather than seeing the same 3 or 4 things done over and over again because that's what makes money. I really hope that we start seeing more game developers focus on making games rather than trying to sell me something. I'd also really like to see new concepts explored in this genre. I really don't think I'm the only one who's tired of hearing about an evil corporation harming or experimenting on children in some messed up way to somehow make money. Never thought that would be a specific story plot that could overuse as much as it does. Either way, I would like to make it a yearly tradition to check out some new horror games. So let me know in the comments below if there's any you want me to check out, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!